Thank you all for being here this morning. Let me give you a rundown of what we're going to do today, who will speak, so this way you know, and we'll try to take some questions afterwards. I'll say some remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to Assemblymember Evan Lowe, who will then turn it over to Rick Zbur, who is the Executive Director of Equality California. Rick will then hand the microphone over to Kathy Sakamura, who is the Deputy Director and Family Law Director for the National Center for Lesbian Rights. She will then ask Stephen Bate, is it Bate?
Very good.
Bate, one of our adoptive parents, to say some words. And then Stephen, I hope, will turn it over to Amos Lim, another one of our adoptive parents, who will say some words. And then we'll see if we can take some questions from the press who are gathered with us today. Okay? So I want to thank everyone who's with me, especially the families. I want to thank the media, too. I think it's important that we get this word out. So I want to say thank you for taking the time on June 1st, because we're celebrating Pride Month. And it's so important that we understand what it means to celebrate Pride Month, right? And so I am pleased that I am standing with people who know what it means to have pride to live in California, to have pride in being part of a forward-leaning state that believes in diversity, in inclusion, in welcoming people. And we are proud of that because it has made us a very successful place. You don't become the 5th largest economy in the world unless you're doing something right. And so we take great pride in conveying to everyone in our state that we respect you, we welcome you, and we wish you to thrive here in California. And we wish you to thrive here in California, not just while you're here, but to know that anywhere in America that you go, that we've got your back. And I want to thank Assemblymember Evan Lowe, who made it possible for us to say to our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community, we've got your back. Because AB 1887, which Assemblymember Lowe made sure got through the legislature and signed by the governor just a few years ago, makes sure that the state of California does not sanction discrimination against anyone in the LGBT community by making sure that we do not use our taxpayer money to support travel to some of these states that don't yet respect every American, every human being the way they should. And so we take pride this morning in talking about what California has done. And while it's not so much a source of pride to tell you that, once again, I must stand here as the Attorney General for the state of California under the law that Assemblymember Lowe passed to now list another state as a state where we will no longer sanction state-funded or state-sponsored travel. But it is a job I will do because we take pride in how we conduct our affairs and how we treat people. Today we are announcing that the state of Oklahoma will join a list of other states that California has identified that do not treat all of our brothers and sisters in this country with respect. And we do not wish to see the list grow. But if there is a state that decides to pass a law that would harm any one of us simply because of how we look, how we speak, our religion, our sexual orientation, we want to make sure that it's clear that California is not going to be part of that. And so today we are listing the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma recently passed a law that says that its adoptive agencies can make decisions based on religious and moral grounds on how they will conduct their adoption services vis-a-vis parents who are interested in adopting, and where they will place foster children that are under their supervision. That means that in some cases, based on religious arguments, there may be a case where someone is discriminated in being allowed to adopt a child because they are part of a same-sex marriage. In California, that's against the law. And in California, we don't want our taxpayer dollars used to support that. And so we are here to say that California, while we don't have jurisdiction in other states to enforce our laws, we do have the right to enforce our laws as best we can here within the state and with the use of California taxpayer dollars. And so we're here to announce that today we are taking this action to prevent any taxpayer dollars from being used to fund or sponsor travel to the state of Oklahoma. This is no different than what we had to do previously when we were enforcing AB 1887 before. We have done this with states like Kansas, where state law allows campus religious groups to exclude people because of who they love. We've added states like Tennessee, where that state allows therapists and counselors to reject LGBTQ clients. We've added states like Texas, where a state law allows foster care agencies to discriminate against children in foster care. And we believe in the words of Martin Luther King, who reminded us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so Oklahoma, in having enacted its Child Placement and Adoption Law, SB 1140, just recently, is now a state that we add to the list of those that discriminate against our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community. While everyone has a right to hold their own religious and moral convictions, no one has a right to use that as a license to discriminate. And so we're here today to say that California will once again show that we are a welcoming, diverse, and inclusive state, and we're going to protect the interests of people throughout California, wherever and however we can. With that, let me now ask Assemblymember Evan Lowe to step forward.
Thank you very much, Attorney General Javier Becerra. I'm very grateful for your continued championship of the LGBT community. It was very well known that you were supportive of the LGBT community when it wasn't popular back when you served in Congress. And as chair of the LGBT Legislative Caucus in the state of California, we are so grateful to have an Attorney General who's continually fighting for equality for all people. As the author of Assembly Bill 1887, it was imperative that we demonstrated the importance of our California values, which was to be a place of inclusion, not exclusion. And it is because of the work of our Attorney General, who has been tasked with enforcement of this law, which is so important. Let me be very clear. We do not take any enjoyment in this announcement today. But as we celebrate the month of Pride in June, this goes to reflect the importance of the struggles that we still have today. These are not the struggles of the past. We still fight these struggles each and every day. And so it's because of our allies, like we have in our Attorney General, Javier Becerra, it is imperative that we continue to advance the interests of all people. And is with the advocacy that we also have with respect to our leaders in the community. And therefore, let me introduce then Executive Director of Equality California, Rick Saber.
Thank you, Assembly Member Lowe. My name is Rick Saber, and I'm the Executive Director of Equality California, the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization. I want to thank Attorney General Becerra for taking swift and decisive action under AB 1887. In 2016, along with Assemblymember Lowe and our colleagues at the National Center for Lesbian Rights, Equality California sponsored AB 1887, which prevents our state from financing discrimination against LGBTQ people across the country through state-funded travel. The law is based on a simple principle, and that is that Californians support equality and social justice for all people, regardless of their race, their ability, their national origin, religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And we reject laws that target the LGBTQ community for discrimination like the ones recently enacted in both Oklahoma and Kansas. As such, taxpayer money should not, and under AB 1887, cannot be used to subsidize discrimination in other states. This is not just a policy argument. This is about real lives. This is about same-sex couples in states like Oklahoma and Kansas who would be denied the opportunity to provide a loving, supportive home to a child who needs one. Today is the first day of Pride Month. It's also 2 weeks and a couple days away from Father's Day, an annual ritual in which we send our kids to the greeting card section of the grocery store. In all seriousness, no, Mother's Day and Father's Day are annual reminders of another reality, of the fact that nearly 500,000 foster children across our country wake up on Father's Day without a forever family, nearly 55,000 in the state of California alone. This reality is even more heartbreaking because we know that, according to the Williams Institute, nearly 2 million LGBTQ adults have expressed interest in becoming foster or adoptive parents. And same-sex couples are 6 times more likely to foster children and 4 times more likely to adopt than our non-same-sex counterparts. As a father of 3 wonderful children myself, I know that my family may look a little bit different than others. My 14-year-old daughter and my twin 9-year-old boys have 2 lesbian moms and a gay dad. Stephen's family and Amos's family may look a little different as well. But I also know that we wake up each day and have the same battle over what everyone's wearing to school. We take our kids to the same soccer practices and perform the same school plays. We nag them about their homework and hang the report cards on the same refrigerators. And at the end of each day, we tuck them into bed, we kiss them goodnight, just like everyone else. So laws that tell loving, committed Oklahomans or Kansans or any Americans that they're somehow less than, that they're somehow unworthy of this fundamental human experience of providing loving homes to our kids, of providing, simply because of who they are or what their family looks like, are antithetical to everything we stand for. And shame on us if we stand by and do nothing. So it's ironic, frankly, because for years, leaders on the far right, like Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, who claimed the moniker of a pro-family leader, they've talked about defending our children and championing family values. Well, here in California, our family values tell us that every child deserves a loving, supportive family. It's neither pro-child nor pro-family to deny them one. And California taxpayers will not subsidize Oklahoma's or any state's discriminatory policies. Love is what makes a family. Love makes a home. And anyone who would deny a child a loving, supportive family, who would deny caring parents the ability to adopt or care for a child in need simply because they're LGBTQ, has no business working in child and family services. We all know that these policies don't reflect our California values, and I believe they don't reflect Oklahoma or Kansas values either. They certainly don't reflect our values as Americans. No, the law passed in Oklahoma and signed by Governor Fallin, and the similar one enacted in Kansas, this legislation is anti-family and anti-child, and it's outright cruel discrimination targeting LGBTQ people, would-be parents who want to provide loving homes for these kids and kids who need them. And that's why we're so grateful to Attorney General Becerra for taking this decisive action today in support of equality for all and for being a relentless champion for LGBTQ civil rights and the rights of all Americans. And we want to thank Assemblymember Lowe for his courageous leadership in getting this bill passed. And we stand with our partners at NCLR, our counterparts, Oklahomans for Equality and Equality Kansas, and the people in these states who reject the hate and discrimination that their government has enshrined into law. And we will continue to do everything in our power to help repeal these unjust laws, making sure that California taxpayers are never, ever forced to subsidize discrimination. Thank you very much. I'd like to now introduce my colleague, Kathy Sukamura, from the National Center for Lesbian Rights.
Thank you so much. My name is Kathy Sakimura, and I'm Deputy Director and Family Law Director at the National Center for Lesbian Rights. This important action reflects California's values of inclusion and diversity. California has taken a strong stand to prohibit the use of our taxpayer funds to support discrimination by other states. And with this action, the Attorney General has correctly recognized the deep harm that this Oklahoma law does to families in our communities. Oklahoma's new law allows taxpayer-funded adoption and foster agencies to deny placement of children with families solely because of the parent's sexual orientation or gender identity. This means an agency can refuse to place a child even if it would be in the child's best interest to do so. This law not only harms children in need of adoption and prospective parents, but also sends a message that Oklahoma tolerates and in fact promotes this kind of discrimination against LGBTQ families. At the National Center for Lesbian Rights, we hear from hundreds of families who have adopted who are either facing discrimination or fear that they will be facing discrimination. The families in our community seek only the dignity and respect that every family deserves. And although we've made many strides to achieve this equal dignity, we have a long way to go because many states like Oklahoma still have and continue to pass laws that openly discriminate and promote discrimination against LGBTQ people and their families. This action sends a powerful message that California will not support or tolerate discrimination within its borders or beyond. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Stephen Bonney, an adoptive parent.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Bate. I'm the adoptive father of this amazing 11-year-old boy, Francesco, who may or may not say anything today. It's still to be determined. 12 years ago, I made a very conscious decision to create my family through adoption. If a discriminatory law like this had existed then, my family would not exist today. So I would not have all the joys and often the frustrations of this young man being a part of my life. A law like this means that children will lose out on finding out what it is like to have a forever family like my son has and how I have as well. It also sends a terrible message to the LGBT community, prospective parents, that there's something wrong with us, that we're different in some way. Let me attest to the fact that we are not. And I'd like to say, as a native Californian, I'm so incredibly proud of my state. Yet again, we are leading from the front. It is the reason I choose to raise my son in this state. Thank you very much. Would you like to say anything?
Sure.
Would you like to say how this law makes you feel?
Yeah, I guess.
Can you say it there?
Yeah. So the law makes me feel like pretty sad because if the law was passed in California, I wouldn't get to be with my amazing family, with my father and my grandparents, and getting to see my mother all the time. So.
Thank you, my love. Oh, and let me introduce another adoptive parent, Amos Lim.
Hi, my name is Amos Lim. As a Christian, as a gay married couple, my husband and I adopted an 8-month-old baby who's now 10 years old. And she's actually finishing her 4th grade in about 3 days. It's blowing my mind. I find it really disturbing that the state will sanction discrimination in the case of adoption by same-sex parents. I can tell you from personal experience that all a baby needs, all a toddler or a teenager needs to thrive is to live in a loving, stable home environment. I've seen it with my own eyes raising my daughter that I brought home from the foster care system at 8 months old. And every day I'm amazed at what a wonderful girl she's grown up to be. That's not to mention, and I should also emphasize that we have about 55,000 kids in the foster system in California. I'm not sure exactly about the statistics in Oklahoma, Kansas, or in this country, but at least all those kids deserve to have a loving, stable environment to grow up in. To deny same-sex couples the ability to adopt will actually mean that more kids will not have a stable environment to grow and achieve their full potential. It is with this that I really support California's action today, and I thank you, Attorney General Javier Becerra and Assembly Member Evan Lowe, for doing this. All kids would thrive if they could live permanently with a forever family, then live their daily life with a duffel bag or a garbage bag ready to move on to another residence or family. The government's role is to be able to pair more kids under their care to be placed with a loving and permanent family, so they should do everything in their power to facilitate this. The law passed in Oklahoma is bad for kids that needs a permanent loving home, and it's nothing but discriminatory. It's the children who are in fact harmed in this case. Thank you. And with this, I hand it over to Attorney General Javier Becerra.
Mr. Lim, thank you. And actually, before we take questions, Jennifer Carlin is also here with us, and she is, too, an adoptive parent. And we were fortunate that so many of the families were willing to come forward today to join us, because it's really their story that we're talking about. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to give her a few moments to say some words as well.
My granddaughter's running down the hall somewhere, so hopefully someone's watching her. Just to thank you again for doing this. We have 2 adopted children. One of our children was adopted through private adoption, and one was adopted through the FOST Adopt program in California. My partner and I have been together almost 3 decades, and our family would not be complete if it wasn't for us to have children, which is so true for so many people. It's just something that human beings want to do. When I was a child, I would say to people, I'm never going to have children. But that wasn't because I didn't want to have children. It was because I knew that something about me was different. And I didn't think that LGBT people could have children. And then I grew up and I moved to California. And I knew that then I could have children. And I was lucky enough to first, we adopted our son, who is now grown into an amazing young man who's 28 years old. He's the director of an early child care center, and now he's given us a 22-month-old grandchild, which is the joy of our lives. And we also have a 17-year-old teenage daughter who is an honor student in high school and a spoken word artist, and says she's leaving us to go to college. We're still in negotiations about that. I don't think that's really on our agenda, but anyway, we are such an incredibly normal, boring American family. We are what makes America great, is these kinds of families where we argue about who has to take out the garbage, and we love each other, and we cry together, and we celebrate together. And 2 years ago, we took care of my mother-in-law as she was dying, and we do all the things that American families do. And these kinds of laws are nothing but animus, and they're based in no facts. I happen to be an instructor at City College of California, and I teach research methods, and the things that they try to base these things as though there's some kind of research that says that we're bad families. My freshman research method students could tear that kind of information apart. What we are normal American families who just want to raise our children and be happy and find homes for these kids and create the American dream. And so, thank you.
I'm glad I let you say some words. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.